Andresa. Thank you very much. Andresa, please sit wherever you want. Here. You have this.
Ari is the first one.
Okay. So yeah, so panel 3 is called Producing from the Land, Data-Related Business and Technologies to Tackle Climate Change and Fostering Prosperity and Inclusiveness. As you can remember from the conceptualization of the workshop that we're talking about, so we want to focus on the product chain from both sides. Panel 3 as the production, and panel 4 will be about consumption. So because of that, we we invited today 4 panelists who are in the industry somehow offering or dealing with data-related business models that somehow are focused on leveraging climate change. So since we are running out of time, I just will invite so Ari from Embrapa to
Just presenting Ari. Ari is graduated in economics from the Federal University of Juiz de Fora, Master in Science from the University of São Paulo, and PhD in Science also from the University of São Paulo. He's currently a researcher at the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation, has experience in economics with an emphasis on agricultural economics, working mainly on the following topics: time series analysis, econometrics, climate risk assessment, and impact of climate change. Please be very welcome and have a nice presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Max Planck Institute. Thanks for Mackenzie University also. I'd like to use the remote control. We have one, please. I was afraid with my presentation because I do not relate with the issue of property, the law, things that you discussed previously. But I'm an economist, and since I went to Embrapa 18 years ago, I started to work with agronomists, with modern science. So I became a kind of strange thing inside this group. I start my presentation explaining the Embrapa in general. We are a research corporation in Brazil. We have 49 years, and we start with a mission to deal. It's not working. Okay. With the innovation, with the technology development in a country where the climate was dominant and in a complete different environment from temperate areas in the globe. So our mission is to change crops from temperate areas to tropical areas. And we start to do this with soybeans, which was a grain really important to other countries, not Brazil, but we transfer grains from the south to the Amazon place, close to Amazon, and now we have a lot of materials, genetic materials adapted to the whole country. So to occupy this place, we have to deal also with knowledge, not only with data since the start. We have a lot of data about temperate areas in the globe because of the whole history of development of agriculture. But here we have to discover how soils function, how agroecosystem functions, how to adapt the production to this place. The history of Embrapa is closely linked with funding in agriculture Brazil. We gave funding to producers until the 1970 without gains in productivity. So we had a problem. How to improve the production and intensification, and what is failing? What's the failure? The diagnosis is that we have to develop research and science adapted to this condition. Then Embrapa was created, and we created 43 centers of research and development divided in 3 main categories. Thematic center that I work in one, Embrapa Digital Agriculture. And the origin was Embrapa Agricultural Informatics. We start with the computers almost. In the product centers, for example, soybean, Embrapa soybean, Embrapa maize, Embrapa dairy cattle, Embrapa beef cattle, and eco-regional centers, which are centers that knows the environment better than the other institutions. So with this arrangement, we developed science to trying to promote better production systems, to credit system, recommend to adoption. So the funding system in Brazil it was dominated by the Banco do Brasil, Brazil's bank. Almost the unique institution that funding agriculture in Brazil at the start. And they start to construct contracts and induce technologies suited and recommended by Embrapa and the other science institutes that were partners. With the evolution of Embrapa and the evolution of the agriculture, the productive the yield start to grow, and we became a kind of supporter to agricultural policy in the financial size, in the financial instruments of agricultural policy. One of that was related with rural insurance, with insurance. We have a program, ProAgro, which is a program until now really important for medium and small size producers. And they started to ask us to measure risks, how we should evaluate the climatic risks and use these risks inside contracts, insurance contracts, because in Brazil, with this dynamic, we do not have data specific for producers that was only beginning to produce in those conditions. So we started to simulate what is the result in terms of to screen the producers when he went to a bank and to identify the profile suited to the producer based on tables, actual tables that insurers in Brazil used. It was a different arrangement of the insurance industry in Brazil, different, for example, from USA, from Spain, because they have a lot of data of individual producers. So the problems of information asymmetry in the markets that creates failures in markets in Brazil started to be surpassed with this strategy. How we would create incentives, subsidies in rural insurance, in rural contracts, and we avoid to go inside a trap of moral hazard, where you are opportunist and you sow the seeds to loss and just to gain the indemnity. So in Brazil we create a program called Agricultural Risk Zoning that I was a coordinator until 2017. And we start to evaluate the restriction, the constraint that producers and the insurances should follow to guarantee the correct, used, and the fair contract between parties. Our mission, so, is to create research, development, and innovation solutions to ensure sustainability of agriculture for benefit of the Brazilian society. This concept includes also public goods like information and private goods that we do with some technology solutions in our centers of research and development. This was in 1970. Embrapa sent about 2,000 researchers to the world to be trained to receive a master's degree and doctorate degree, and came back with new technologies and to adapt this technology in Brazil. This is, in fact, a partnership that until now we are sustaining. We are sending people to the world to be trained, to cooperate in terms of science, and to gain solutions and share informations. We are open innovation with the productive sector. Projects in our company are public and private partnerships. Embrapa is a public company, but a public corporation, but we work in a close relation with private sector. Innovation-driven projects. Our mission is much more to take knowledge from papers and put in the society than to put knowledge on papers. That is the mission of universities in Brazil. So we work with scientists in a partnership from universities, from a lot of institutions, work with co-funding, intellectual property rights, and sharing is essential part of our business. We have to develop contracts, to develop new institutional arrangements to deal with the problem. This is a kind of report where we calculate the benefits for the society, and this is my unit. We are inside the University of Campinas. We have a lot of partners, a lot of collaboration with this environment. We have innovation environment around our research center that we take benefits. Today, our corporation create 5 the biggest scope, the benefits that we try to contribute, and my center has 3 groups trying to contribute to those 5 benefits that are linked with the Sustainable Development Goal. Embrapa was awarded this year by FAO because of his strategies to deal with sustainable benefits, Sustainable Development Goals. This is my project. How to measure risk when you do not have enough information about producers. The problem is not only data. We have to develop systems of analysis, system of modeling, and to produce public information that one producer could not do alone. And even insurance company could not do this with impartiality, because they have to reinsure their contracts. So they need good measures. And also to our government, which depends of this information to give incentive, a subsidy in rural insurance, in insurance policies, that should be managed, should be well administered because of constraints in terms of budget. So, how it works? Embrapa does a lot of experiments, produces a lot of data. Data is not the objective in per se. The objective is to acquire information and transform these in a systems of equations that represents how plants grow when you start to sow. When you sow a plant, we collect all the information about weather, soil, and the characteristics of the plant in experimental conditions, create systems of equations, and then we simulate for the historical precipitation that our weather stations created, and we simulate this plant grow in the history, in the past climate. This plant not necessarily should be there because we only have data and information about the current production system now. We do not have in the whole history. We have to remember that our production system changed in place. So how to evaluate risks where the soybean is not there? Just simulation gives us a kind of representation. So we did this for each county in Brazil. We give at each 10 days a risk measure of sowing. When you sow one seed, the crop will evolve. So you have to sow in the correct period when the risk is low. This map is also a combination of a risk measurement along the time and also socioeconomic information that is observed by the environmental policy in Brazil. We have restriction by socio-ecological zoning, restrictions on agroecological information from soils and plant and environment, and this information creates restrictions on environmental policy and agricultural policy. So they condition how to occupy the land in Brazil. These restrictions, in fact, are effective. For example, in Amazon, we do not offer incentives in those areas that were deforested after 2008. So central bank prohibits to offer credit, prohibits to offer insurance policy on these areas. So we have problems to find financing in this area, in those areas. With this information, we share the information with our data centers, the eco-regional data centers that validate the results, and we adjust the model if necessary. When the data set represents correctly the risk, we send to Agriculture Ministry, and they apply in the regulations. It's not legal regulations. Our problem today is how to create and share data of individuals to diminish the information asymmetry, and how to create sure information with an agriculture that is changing. The production system and this condition is under pressure of climate change. What we do? We took this infrastructure and simulate with the future climate. How is my time? Eh? Okay, not many. Okay. We shared information directly for producers with an app which is called Plantio Certo, correct seeding date, correct sowing. These maps are produced for 48 crops in the whole country. We started to deal with best solutions in terms of carbon in soils. So we developed a strategy to different levels of management in agriculture. Low tillage, for example, is a kind of strategy. So we evaluate the impact of different practices on the soil carbon storage and on the capacity of soils to store water, to offer water for the plant growth. This is the measurements that we did on fields, and then took future climate scenarios from IPCC, changes in temperature, in precipitation, run the simulation, see how the risks will change due the change in temperature, in rainfall, then apply this in computable general equilibrium models to measure social impacts. And this is our traditional research programs on climate change. This impact, for example, in ABC plan, the plan for diminish the emissions, adopting some practices that we start to develop on 2010. This is our infrastructure on climate. We are now running for climate intercomparison project 6 from IPCC, which are the most recent, the current simulations that the IPCC is offering to us. And this is just an information about the different impacts that we have. This one is a map from a system called AgroIdeal that now is inside Embrapa, but was developed by the Nature Conservancy, trade companies, and us to trying to measure the gaps of yield that we have in how to improve the yield, preserving area by growing the production vertically in the same area. So we produce these maps, and trading companies created these strategies to allocate his infrastructure and to originate the production. This is a kind of information that now was produced by a club, an agreement between private companies and Embrapa. Then they decided to become it public. So it's a different kind of arrange to produce a public information. This is what we think that is necessary to develop. We just 1 minute to finish. Just a minute. I'd like to show this. This is what happens in the forest area in Amazon. We have this project called Terra Class. Is another project which measures, for example, that about 24% of the area regrow in forest. The forest in 2004, he grew the native vegetation, secondary vegetation. What this happened? Because the deforestation is an efficient solution for the region. They tries to develop even pasture in conditions really poor in terms of soil, in terms of production. So for a lot of areas that they tries to occupy and to establish the property rights, they abandon and the vegetation regrew. What caused this kind of occupation? Not agriculture. Is the land value, the land price. When you deforest, the land price is multiplied by 2 or even 3 because of speculation, not because you have plans to produce livestock or soybean. So just to explore another information, this is our strategy to produce public information. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Professor Ari, for the presentation and for numbers and for helping us with developing Brazil and all the nature. I'd like to ask Professor Teresa, because I know she is a bit in a rush. So if please, Professors Tiago and Andressa, excuse me. Professor Teresa Carvalho is an associate professor at University of São Paulo and a visiting professor at the University of Paris, Sorbonne. She's also has also received several awards related to technological innovation and sustainability, and she has worked in research and consulting projects in the areas of digital technologies, sustainability, and innovation. And she's going to present to us her project called Amazonia 4.0. Thank you.
A quick remark. Please save your questions also for Adi from BRAPA. We will have a round of questions after the presentations.
Good afternoon. I would like to thank the invitation to be here. It's a pleasure to present this project. I am a little bit in a hurry because I have another talk. And after that, in another place, so it's a little bit hurry. This Amazonia 4.0 project is a project that have different issues, but the main purpose is to create a local economy in order to decrease the defloration of the Amazonia. So I will present to you the project challenges, the objectives, and nowadays we have several Amazonian Creative Laboratory. That means it's some kind of proof of concept of some ideas that we intend to implement in Amazonia. So here you see LCA, Kakaokupuasu. That means we will produce chocolate in the Amazonia in order to create a local economy. And by this way, the people that live there can have money without destroying the Amazonia. The second project that we are developing, we call here Amazon Biobank. That means the local people extract information about the DNA, and then other research that's not the Amazonia can access the information about the Amazonia. And these people that extract this information about species, the idea of this is to produce some pharmaceuticals or something that to help people. And these people that do this in Amazonia can make some money by the same way. So our challenge is that it's possible to reconcile economic development in the Amazon with the forest protection. The second, we want to have traceability of Amazonian products. So if you produce chocolate and you say that's from the Amazon, how will you guarantee this? How we stimulate local economy? Because if you have a local economy based on biodiversity, the people will not destroy the Amazon, the local. Because the former presentation has mentioned this. And today, 75% of the land that was destroyed was abandoned. It makes no sense. And another point is how digital technologies can support this. So here we have the data. So idea is to create Amazonian production based on biodiversity, taking into account Industry 4.0 and bring socio-economic benefits for the local population. I think it's better, because it's very long, the presentation, so I will try to go fast. The first approach that you have in the Amazon was using legally protection for the whole Amazon. For this reason I wrote here, pan-Amazon, because Amazon is not only Brazil. You have several countries. But what happens is that this solution is not focused in modernization, so we continue with poverty and with conflict, local conflict. So the second is about some discussion we have already today, to incentivize farming, mining, energy production. The mining is a big problem today because the mining, there was contamination of water with mercury. And for example, we want to produce chocolate, but you can not use the water. We have to treat the water. So we have a several problem here. So what happens because of this? They destroy the forest in order to have this. So what we are proposing here is, you have biodiversity. We have richness in the forest. Why not to use the knowledge of local people to create products, to create a local economy, and this will mobilize the people. That's not necessary to destroy the forest to survive. Is okay, the approach? So this new paradigm is about sustainable development based on science, technological innovation, and strategic planning to establish a bioeconomy. So the idea is to have this standard forest with rivers flowing and everything. That's beautiful in Amazon. I created this picture in order to give you an idea of the pillars of the project. So we have digital technologies, we have science, like genome, biometrics, sustainability, and social biodiversity. And here is the data, okay? You need the data in order to do the things. And I will present this project. So the first project that are almost done is based in cacao. So this is the picture of cacao. And the idea is to create a mobile structures, then can be moving different parts of Amazon, and then you can teach the people how to produce, for example, chocolate. I brought some pictures of what we are planning. It's like this infrastructure. So the first big issue, we don't have energy. So, for example, to produce chocolate, so machines has to work 48 hours a day. So we are supposed to using a solar panel, okay? And here is the energy infrastructure. And here you have several places. Some places, each part of this is a part of production. And some of them is for teaching the people. This project was done by this Atelier, this Mackenzie, is a very famous architecture that is in collaboration with us. This is another simulation, and this is another inside picture. We have already some of these installed in São José dos Campos. And this is the solar energy. So I will present the first lab, that's Kakaokupuasu. The idea is to have the productive chain. You have to have traceability of cacao in the cupuaçu, to who use digital technologies, empower local communities, and after the proof of the concept, you're supposed to create biofactors in some place that there is no more forest. Here is our production line. I will explain very fast, but you take the cacao, you cut, and then you have fermentations, like you do wine. And then we extract the liquor of cacao, and also you have the amendo, the seeds. This seed you have to roast like coffee. If you toast too much, the chocolate will be very bad. And then you toast. After you have to broke these seeds because inside there is the nibs. And the nibs is what you use to produce the chocolate. And this nib you put in grinding, and you can grind for 24, 48 hours to do a chocolate mess. And after you mixture and put the things. The idea, yes, is what? I need, if you buy a chocolate, he buys a chocolate, and you want to be sure that chocolate is from Amazonia. So I have to have traceability of all the productive chain. So we have here a local register, and you have here a blockchain system. So everything is blockchain system. We needed this local register because another issue in Amazon, we don't have internet. So how you share data? So this is another very important issue in Amazon, lack of energy, lack of internet access, and the problem with water. And here is only summarizing the automation. We are using a lot of technology like big data, Internet of Things, blockchain, and so on. There you present is another project. This project is being developed in University of São Paulo. Here is the same thing. We know that we have a lot of things in biodiversity. I think everyone knows about açaí. The people extract açaí from Amazon and make a lot of money with food, cosmetics, supplements, but the local population don't make money with this, okay? So the idea, what is this? Is to create some database based on DNA sequence of different substances that are interested for research and development of drugs or another issue. In this case, you need a lot, you should create a lot of data. And then is an issue, how you store this data. So one thing that we are thinking about the technological solution is to use a peer-to-peer network. Then we share the things, distributed sharing. So this Amazon Biobank is a community-based genetic database. The idea is that the local people collect things from the Amazon. You store in some place, and after this information could be accessed by researchers or could be accessed by pharmaceutical industry, for example. And the idea is also to use local knowledge. Here I put some players. You have the people that collect the things in the Amazon, collector and traditional writers. Then you put this in processors. You have to validate this because you have a sequence of DNA. You need to validate to see if it is complete or if it is not complete, if it is not fraud. And so you have people that has this function of validator and curator. Then you have the research, and this will be sold to people that want to develop research of this. And this is supposed to have Amazon Biobank network using also blockchain for security and trust in the data. Yes, we have some challenge in this project. How to ensure that the correctness of the inserted data. For this reason, we need a validator and curator. How to deal with data outside the blockchain. For example, someone can take this data. I am finishing. Can take this data and then try to sell and not give the money for local people. How you ensure this? Conclusion. Normally I am fast. So the idea of this project, Amazon Biobank, is a community-based genetic database. You know there is some regulation in Brazil. You have to follow all regulation of Brazil. There is the system, the CGN system. The idea is also have traceability and auditability. It means I can trace from where is this data, and also to do some kind of audition. We have already implemented the prototype, and this prototype was implemented at the University of São Paulo, and we will transfer this for Instituto Amazônia 4.0, or Amazônia 4.0 Institute. Is that? Thanks so much. This is our sponsors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Teresa. Would you have some time for a round of questions?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's great. You also have to go. Is it possible that we have a round of questions now, so you can answer questions and then we can keep with it? Okay, great. Thank you. So, give the floor if anyone has questions to Ari from Embrapa or to Professor Teresa, Amazon 4.0. No?
Thank you very much for your presentations and for the work you've been developing. My name is Anna. I'm a professor here at Mackenzie. I have a question to both of you with regard to the SDGs. If you're also considering the perspective on attending the SDGs here in Brazil under the IPEA, under the indicators of IPEA, of the, I don't know, SDG 13, for an example, and with regard to the Amazon forest or in the other SDGs that were presented today. And if you are considering this into your research, attending those SDGs by 2030, and if you are also trying to consider a human rights perspective, especially when you're talking about the Amazon forest and the communities involved, if there is any kind of preoccupation with the human rights, attending the protection of human rights of the vulnerable groups in the Amazon within this project as well. Thank you very much.
The people from the Amazon that I work with are river communities, indigenous, and local people in general. And in the middle of this year, we, through the project sponsor, we brought a group of 15 people or 25 people to know this project. So everything that we are done with the participation of them, in the sense that they recognize this project as part of their culture. And now we are moving to Manaus, because we thought that it is very important to be very close to them. Other way, we'll create a solution in São Paulo that is not close to this reality. And by this way, we're supposed to fulfill this worry that you are mentioned, as also ESG.
At Embrapa, we have a system of project assessment. We have an exposed and ex-ante assessment, and for each project we have to link with SDG, the correspondent SDG, And for the project, we can, after the execution, the project should be examined by a third party in terms of impact, social, environmental, and economic dimension necessarily, but also institutional and political impacts are also considering the projects. Those dimensions are fundamental to indicators like the IPEA is developing. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you very much for the two presentations. I have a couple of questions, but for both. My first is, especially regarding, well, climate, weather, to what extent are you also taking into account the indigenous knowledge? Because they also have a particular way of mapping the weather, and I think that's also important, to how to work with that. So I haven't heard any comment on that, so I wonder, there might be something, so I would like to know.
Yeah.
And if there is any way also because there is a lot of information and data there, that, so if you're also taking that into account, if it's monitor, or, I mean, if it's collected, and then you cross that with new technologies, let's say, or our more non-indigenous way, to put it that way. And regarding the Amazonia Institute, to what extent will you consider, or are you considering intellectual property rights, maybe, I don't know, collective trademarks or certification trademarks, or IGs, so indications of origin, protection of traditional knowledge, I mean, to help in putting these products also in the market and monitoring the traceability and keeping up with that. I mean, I know that we cannot ask indigenous people to enforce that, but we have the institute, to act as the agent, like the middle person. So we'll be interested to know, because I saw that there is a copyright. So you're aware of that. So I wonder how is the use of that, and how that also helps to the extent with data and digital technologies.
I will try to answer the first question. When we create the risk assessment, we have two profiles of producers, small and larger producers. For small producers, we give a special condition to evaluate the risk in a basis. For example, for maize that's produced by indigenous people, with considering that they will be more in a more risk condition, for example, because they do not use hybridous seeds. So we develop different models for crops, and we validate the results with the population, the people from the local areas. I had some experience, for example, with traditional knowledge. When I went to Northeast region in Brazil, they told you could not seed before the São José Day, Saint Joseph Day, because if it rains in the Saint Joseph Day, you could seed. If you do not rains, you could not seed. So the seed. We checked. In fact, if the rain do not occur in the period, is because we have a transport of humidity, aerial humidity, and different condition in the Northeast region. It's interesting. For example, we have some communication from populations quilombolas that we are population of Afro descendants. They exchange information of different regions, Yeah, they calls the other ones and ask, is raining there? If it's raining, so in the next month it will rain here. It's raining. In fact, those areas are linked in terms of water circulation from atmosphere. It does a lot of sense after we check the result. It's a kind of validation to us also. It's interesting. Yeah. 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 There are a lot of histories from local people relate the practice, the agricultural practice, linked with the traditions of the local. We have this kind of information. It's not a systematic study to us, okay? In fact, we do this kind of analysis for the government. We have to deal with the rural issues in the whole countries, but I experiment this kind of situation.
Okay, the first part of the question. This project began with Professor Carlos Nobre, that is a very famous climatologist. So it is begin because of the climate. And the second about the rights, I have to remember that the Amazon Biobank is assessed by biologists, and we are take care about the CISGEN. CISGEN is a system of Brazilian government where you register genetics data. So we have to follow this. And this is the copyright, intellectual property, everything is together. Because it's considered data that belongs to Brazil in this sense. Okay? Is that? Yes? Okay. I would like to thank your attention and apologize myself, but I have another talk now, and I am very worried about the guy. Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you also. I have to go back to Campinas to with my thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, participation. Thank you. Now I'd like to present Professor Thiago Reis from TRACE. A researcher. He is a scientist, researcher, articulator, engager, and curious man. Cerrado farmer, which is a region, right, from Brazil. And currently he works as TRACE South America leader. And TRACE is an initiative for increasing the transparency and sustainability of economies and currently tracing agricultural supply chains. Also, it's coordinating and implementing TRACE engagement strategy in South America and Brazil. Please have a nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have the, can I take the control? Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be here with you all. I'm just limping a bit because I was playing football yesterday. Almost broke my leg, sorry about that. So yeah, I'm here to introduce to you a little bit about TRACE. TRACE is this transparency initiative which stands to Transparency and Intelligence for Sustainable Economies. We are a program, we are a partnership, we're a network, so we are a consortium of organizations involving the Stockholm Environment Institute in Sweden, but also Global Canopy in England, in the UK, and also lots of partners around the world, because we always look for partners, for local partners who can provide this local context, who can help us to obtain local, national level data, because it's a data initiative. So here in Brazil, we are partners with Imaflora. I don't know if you have ever heard of this organization, but it is a civil society organization based in Piracicaba, not far from here. And it's a forestry and agriculture institute that does certification, but also public policy, advocacy, etc. So TRACE, as I already started, is this transparency, data-driven transparency initiative that maps the agricultural, the international flows of agricultural commodities with the risk of deforestation. So we look at these flows and we attribute these exposures to risk of deforestation. We have some components, which is first the supply chains mapping. Then on top of that, we do the mapping of the financial sector. We look at shareholders, bonds holders, and also the banks giving loans to these supply chains. So we map all this hierarchy of institutions who fund the agricultural commodities exposed to deforestation around the globe. And finally, we have these tracing sites, which is our more analytical component, where we do spatial intelligence analysis, where we look at remote sensing data and we interpret this in light of commodity supply chains and international trade of these commodities. So TRACE maps the middle part of the supply chain. So it's additional. Additional value comes from mapping these flows of commodities subnationally. So instead of just looking at the trade between countries, as we have, for example, in the FAO stat or Comtrade, the UN Comtrade, we dig deeper into the supply chains. We go really into the subnational jurisdiction of production. So we start in these municipalities of production, or departments, or districts, or provinces, for example. It depends on the country. Then we go to the traders or slaughterhouses for the case of swine or bovine supply chains. Then we go to the port, exporter, importer, and the countries who are importing these commodities. So this way we can attribute the levels of exposure of these various actors along the supply chain. So just to give you an overview of what's the coverage we have so far. So we've covered most of commodities in the south cone of South America, mostly Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, and Bolivia. But we also have some commodities mapped in Ecuador, Colombia, and then in Asia we have Indonesia, and in Africa, Cote d'Ivoire, but also now Ghana. We have, it's not in there, but we have mapped cocoa in Ghana as well. So it's already included. So who are the users of TRACE? So TRACE is a public service. We are a civil society organization. So we provide a public service to decrease the asymmetry of information, as Ari spoke before me. So that's the main objective of TRACE, is reducing this asymmetry of information so that companies, importing governments, investors, consumer goods companies, processors, retailers, can make better decisions with regards to deforestation and to Scope 3 emissions, to the CO2 emissions related to deforestation, which are mostly unmapped in these supply chains and climate negotiations. Of course, we also provide services to other NGOs, advocacy NGOs, to the media, to campaigns. We inform many of these campaigns by Greenpeace, for example, WWF in Europe, in Brazil. We have been providing information and knowledge to many of these campaigns around the world. So this is just a quick example of China imports from Brazil in 2018. So we show here, for example, what are the locations that mostly exported to China in terms of municipalities. What's the volume? So as we can see, China is a large importer from the Mato Piba region, which is in the northern part of the Cerrado biome. And it's an active hotspot of deforestation. And China has a supply chain infrastructure that favors sourcing from this region. Therefore, China is highly exposed to this deforestation in this region. And also we have this look at municipalities, and we identify some priority municipalities that can actually deliver most impact. So for example, this 7 December, we launched our new soy data in Brazil for 2019 and 2020. And we identified, for example, that only 309 municipalities that produce soy in Brazil, which are some kind of 13% of all soy producing municipalities in Brazil, they concentrated in 2020 95% of the soy harvest from deforestation. So just a few municipalities have 95% of all the soy harvested from recently deforested lands, which means you can target action into these places to stop deforestation for soy. Of course, you have deforestation for beef, you have deforestation for palm oil, wood pulp, etc., etc. But in this case, it's apparently low-hanging fruit, apparently a relatively easy. Of course, nothing is easy in these global commodity supply chains, but it's apparently relatively easy. So we also map the exposure of the main traders to deforestation, and this is the bubble map of the size of exposure to deforestation of these companies. So as we can see, Bunge, Cargill, ADM, and now more recently Olam, who started sourcing a lot of soy with deforestation exposure from Brazil, and also Gavilon are the top 5 soy traders exposed to deforestation in Brazil because of their operations. So I can give you more details about the methods, but I would spend like half an hour explaining everything. You can access. We have all our methods, all our data. Everything is completely transparent and accessible. You can access everything on trace.earth, so to understand how we calculate these things. But it's based on geographic location of facilities. It's based on trade data. It's based on bills of lading, for example, customs declarations. We cross all this information and get these outputs. So China, as I already said, followed by Brazil, Brazilian domestic consumption, and then the European Union. These are the 3 largest markets exposed to deforestation for soy. And then we also assessed the limits the limitations of these zero deforestation commitments, because as we know, many of these traders, they have their own individual zero deforestation commitments, but they are also part of the soy moratorium, for example, which is a collective zero deforestation commitment. So we found in 2020 that 50%, half of the Brazilian soy exports, they were actually covered by these zero deforestation commitments. But the other half of the exports were completely uncovered by these commitments. So this shows the limitations of these voluntary commitments and highlights the importance of having jurisdictional zero deforestation commitments. As the example we've seen recently, the European Union has just passed this legislation, this deforestation-free commodities legislation, which will address and fine commodities that are related to deforestation once they arrive into European ports. This is going to start implementation, hopefully, in 2023, but maybe 2024. There are still some details to define, but it's coming. And France already has a similar legislation since 2017. Droit de vigilance, c'est le nom de. Okay, so just moving to another product we have here in Brazil, because trace supply chains and finance is mostly focused on exports. Then for Brazil, which is a very important country for, let's say, deforestation and beef, we have a different solution to map the consumption and the domestic beef supply chain. So this application is called do Pasta ao Prato. I invite everyone here to download this app on your phones. It's available for Android and also for Apple. It's called Do Pasto ao Prato. With this app, can we play a video? Let's see if the video works. Ele está passando aqui, mas não aparece lá. Mas como que mostra lá, será? Acho que tem que tirar aqui do modo apresentação, será? Ah, agora sim, agora vai. Sorry about the Portuguese caption, but it's really an app designed for the Brazilian public. So just to say, basically, you can scan the sanitary inspection code, which is labeled in every piece of beef in Brazil. You have the federal sanitary inspection code, but you also have the states, and we have already mapped 3,000 slaughterhouses in the country, and we assessed their supply sheds, their exposure to deforestation, to fire, if they bought animals from farms listed in the slave labor list, and also the number of sanitary inspection fines that they have received over a period of time. And we give this information to the consumer, and in exchange, we ask the consumer to register the point of sale, which is the supermarket who is retailing this piece of beef. Because we know the origin of the beef in terms of farm and the slaughterhouse, but we don't know who is selling that. Unless it's exported, which we know, but if it's consumed domestically, and Brazil consumes like 76% of its own production. So that's why it's very key to map these flows of beef, this internal domestic flow of beef, and then assign the exposure to deforestation also to who is retailing this beef, and if it's related to social environmental problems. And then just to finalize, to conclude and do this short reflection on the questions that were asked to me. So first, Trace as an initiative, it's clearly within the SDG 13 because of it's related to climate action. We also map, as I said, scope 3 emissions of the supply chains, the emissions related to deforestation to produce these commodities. Of course, also to SDG 12, because we also inform these campaigns and advocacy work related to responsible and sustainable production and consumption. Life on land, because it's a land-based product and system. And also peace, just and strong institutions, because it's related to transparency, to open governments. We rely on data from governments on these transparency initiatives as well. And what are some of these data-related aspects? So here in Brazil, we actually have several issues in terms of data opacity. So for example, the animal transits movement, which is the GTA in Portuguese, which is the basis for mapping this connection between slaughterhouses and the farms, first supplier, second supplier, third supplier. This is not public. We need to do data scrapping from every state to collect these data. So, I mean, it is public. It should be public, but it's passively available. So, which means we need to do some work to collect this data and interpret this data. Of course, it would be much easier if the states or the federal government standardized this information and provided it all together. There are some initiatives in this sense already going on, and hopefully with some renewed political will, we can access this kind of information. Also, there is this, the general protection, the LGPD, the General Law on Data Protection, which has recently been approved and started to be implemented in Brazil. We still need to clarify many aspects of this. So I really appreciate your effort here as lawyers, as data protection specialists and data sharing specialists to help advance on these debates on what's really protected, what should really be protected, what should not be protected. For example, according to a colleague that I just heard I speak today, he said that according to his view as a lawyer and also based on the Constitution, once a farmer breaches the legislation by practicing, for example, illegal deforestation, he should lose the rights for data privacy. And we should be able to identify the tax ID number, the CPF, of this landowner using the Rural Environmental Registry, the CAR database. So now it's completely protected. We don't have access to that. Fine. But apparently there is this constitutional idea or principle that could be mobilized to disclose the information of law violators. Or for example, if you have slave labor in your farm, you shouldn't have your data protected, right? We need to expose that. We need to see that. Companies should be able to see in order not to buy. Banks should be able to see this information in order not to give credit to these actors. So that's a bit of his understanding, and I would like to provoke you for this thought and help us to find the legal ways to get more data and more transparency so that we can hold accountable the actors involved in these social environmental issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thiago. Now you're going to present. It is one.
Let me just try to.
So now we have Professor Andressa Schmeling. She's an agronomist engineer from the University of São Paulo. She has been involved with agriculture and sustainability projects since 2016, focusing on genetics until 2020, including international experience in the Netherlands. She currently holds an ESG position at AgroSmart, developing projects focused on the social and environmental development of agriculture chains through the ESG platform.
Thank you so much.
Welcome and have a nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, last but not least, I would like to thank you so much for this invite. It's really good to be here to talk about agriculture and sustainability because it needs to be in the same speech. We need to talk about agriculture and sustainability. It's not one or another. They are together. So thank you so much again. So firstly, I would like to explain a little bit of AgroSmart's mission, that is to use technology and design to accelerate the transition for a more productive, sustainable, and climate-resilient food system. Well, what farmers use it to do to produce food in the early days stopped making sense due to climate change. So we have different amount of rain, we have different temperatures. So then we have to help them monitoring climate, and that is our biggest mission, to help them to produce in a more climate resilience way. Well, AgroSmart, we are right now in 9 countries. We are monitoring more than 90 crops, more than 48 million hectares, And we have in our base more than 100,000 farmers. Each of the green dots are one client of us. We are monitoring all of them. We are really aligned to several SDGs, like the number 2, 5, 6, 9, 10, 12, and the one we are talking today, 13. We are also members of the Global Pact and members of the Nature Climate Solutions Alliance. Our headquarters is located in Campinas, where I work, but we also have an office in Manaus, linked to projects related to bioproducts. And also we have team in Paraguay and Argentina. Well, so we are paving a way to become the operational system for sustainable food systems. We first started with our platform, which is called Climate Smart Agriculture Platform, that we are monitoring climate. So we are monitoring the weather, we are monitoring the rain, temperature, wind, helping farmers with their daily decisions. So since we have a lot of changes coming up, we help them by tracking all the information regarding weather, climate changes, to help them to improve their farming decisions. Then a lot of companies started talking with us, asking for information not only about agriculture, but also social governance and all the environmental information to track those key performance indicators. So we started also working with what we called ESG platforms to help to track all the things together, because when we deal with climate change, it's not just climate change. We have to also track social conditions. It's all linked all together, as we have seen in the whole day. And now we are going into finance because, well, we know that here in Brazil today, farmers, they don't have enough money. They have money just to buy inputs, but they don't have money to improve their technology. So if we go together with the companies, if they support small farmers with finance conditions, with credit, then we will be able to have more technology on field, and then to help to have a more sustainable production, to help saving water, saving energy, and have also a better production, sustainable production. So this is the first platform I told you. It's really focused on farmers, on small farmers, medium farmers, and big farmers, okay? Well, we have several products inside this platform. The first one, it's called the Booster Agro app, which is Argentinian company that we bought recently. This company was, they use it to make an comparison of forecasts, weather forecasts, and they have a lot of clients there. So we started asking them questions about production, not only the weather conditions, but also the varieties they were using, the production they got. So a lot of information we could use to bring farmers some insights to have better farming decisions. Inside the platform, we also provide the farmers with geolocated weather forecasts. Inside this weather forecast, which is made specifically for the farms, not for city conditions, but for farmers, we also give insights for the best time for spraying. Because we know if we bring just farmers the information about humidity, just information about wind, just information about radiation, it's a good information, but what I do with it? So it's good to bring them not just information, not just data, but information, to bring them insights, what to do with this data. So that's what we are doing. We are collecting data on field with sensors like weather stations, like rain gauge, like sensor of soil humidity, and then bringing them insights to know when is the best time for sowing, spraying, harvesting. We also have satellite imagery. We have also custom alerts. They are like WhatsApp messages that will be sent to farmers, telling them, warning them of any particular weather event could be forecasted or measured by meteorological stations. Just some good information to tell you. Here today in Brazil, we don't have a lot of data on field. And why? Because just 20% of farms have access to internet. That's what a lower number compared to the world. And well, 20% of farms have internet connection, and mostly they are just on the office, not on field. So how will I have data of weather conditions, of production conditions? This is a big challenge that we have here. So AgroSmart was the first company to make a solution, to provide a solution. All our equipments, the data is sent by satellite. So it helps a lot of farmers because they don't need internet on field to have this data collection. And well, we are also working with Field Notebook to help them with their daily decisions, to help tracking everything they have been doing, applying fertilizers, the day they have sowed, the day they have harvest, and everything, and so on. We also have managed reports related to climate conditions, so they can make a comparison between days, weekly comparison, monthly, annually, and so on. And the other platform, it's related to it's 4 companies for food and beverage chains that they want not only the agronomic data, but they also want the social, and governance tracking. So we help them to monitor, report, and we support them to verify these data. So through our ESG platform, we can monitor, report, and verify the organization's progress towards its goals. Even if it's related to carbon footprint, scope 3, as you said, even if it's related to deforestation, energy consumption, waste management, water usage, and fair work, and others KPIs. This is the main ones. And how does monitoring works inside our platform? Well, we use the imagery of satellites. We use our sensors on field. Remember, I showed you every green dot, it's one client of us. So we have a lot of data here in the South America. We have also the Boosted Agro app, which I told you, it's kind of a farmer community. Farmers really like to tell each other the production, what they have been doing, and usually they use it to do it in WhatsApp, but then we are trying to move it to Boosted Agro app, then we can kind of use this data to provide more insights. And also we have to collect data. We have the Field Notebook that they have predefined forms compatible with the main certification and protocols. It also allows to add some forms related to the industry or crop-specific checklists. We can capture data offline, so it's really helpful. And then when we have internet connection, it will send to the I don't know how to say in English, but we'll send information. And also, it's not you just not input information, but you have to add some evidence, such as photos, documents, and so on. And then with all this data, we generate dashboards related to environmental data, social data, governance data, and also operational data, helping all the supply chain to have all those trackings and all this, that traceability. And through API integration and data crossing, we support the verification and auditing of relevant indicators for decision-making related to compliance, credit, finance, deforestation, and also carbon. And what are the benefits of using both platforms? I think it's really clear, but let me... well, for farmers, we have made research with our clients, and since we help them also with irrigation management, so as we are working with soil humidity sensors, and we know a lot of agriculture, we tell them, we give them insights on when is the best time for irrigate and how much water will be needed. So they have a lot of savings with water, so they improve water usage, they increase yield, optimize spraying since they know all the weather conditions. They reduce risks, costs, and also facilitate certification processes. And for the supply chain, well, we help them to engage suppliers. We centralize data and increase transparency and traceability, since we are always monitoring progress and helping the companies to achieve their impact KPIs. So we help them also to the communication with the stakeholders, the marketing communication to the final consumers also. And well, better decisions, they impact. In this same research that we made with our clients, we have seen that by having more data, by having those informations and insights, we help them to increase productivity up to 20%, since they know when it's the exactly time to start to irrigate, when I know it's the best time to sowing, when I know it's the best time for harvesting. We help them water saving up to 60%. Obviously, it depends on the technification of the farm, because some farmers, they have more knowledge, they have more technology there, so it depends, obviously, but this is an average. And also, we have an average of saving of energy up to 40%, because since we are having a better usage of the irrigation, the water bombs will also be less used, and then we have a saving of energy and also a less carbon equivalent consumption. So imagine if in one farm we have this 40% saving of energy. Imagine a chain that we are dealing with 20,000 farmers. It's a lot. And also SDG number 9, for digitalization and connectivity. Number 13, because we help producers to be more adapted and resilient. We help them to adapt and to mitigate. And also the reduction of carbon footprint. So this is the numbers from the results from 2021. We are making right now the report for 2022. Well, we remember those alerts I told you? We had 104,000 alerts sent to farmers to help them, that have helped them to switch their decision, to help them to improve their production. And also we had, since we are helping them with the water management, we could help them to save 45.9 billion liters of water in irrigation, just in the past year. So just to conclude, because I know we are in a hurry, market asks for social, environmentally responsible companies, and we help you with every step of this commitment. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, both panelists. Really, it's fascinating, both projects. It gives some hope that, that things can change, I would say. Questions? Because.
Thank you so much. I have one question. Maybe I haven't understood it completely, the business model, how it functions. So what's your objective when, based on your data, you are making an advice to a farmer? Is it to maximize the gains of that farmer, or is it to cut down the carbon footprints eventually? Because these two things may not necessarily be aligned.
Yeah. I think it's really...
It's working, yeah.
Okay. So when we are dealing with agriculture, and since I said farmers here in Brazil, they just have money to buy inputs and not technology, firstly, I have to prove them that what I'm saying, you have gains. And gains related to carbon footprint, gains related to saving water and energy that in the end of the day will save his money also. So it's both together. We are providing tools for farmers to have a more sustainable production, and sustainability is not just linked with weather conditions, with climate conditions, but also finance conditions. So it's all together. We provide them tools to have increase yield, but also to be finance sustainable, and also to have all the gains together.
Thank you. Very quick question. What's your business model? How do you make money?
Yeah, sure. Well, we sell the farmers this technology, this intelligence. So since we are dealing with climate smart agriculture platform, well, we rent them the sensors on field, and we collect this data, and we transform this data in real information for them. And by having this information, he'll make all his farming decisions. So this is our kind of model. Yeah. Let me clarify. Farmers pay me for the climate smart agriculture platform. The ESG platform, mostly the companies, like, for example, big companies of coffee, you can imagine some, big companies of cocoa, big companies of yeah, I don't know if I can say names here. Yeah, no problem. So, okay, not all of them are our clients, but I'll say some names, like big companies like Nestle, big companies such as, thinking of more, such as Frutti from Açaí. It's our client, I can say that. So we are making all this traceability, and for the ESG platform, the companies, they are providing this information for the small farmers. They are having the product. So it's kind of, I don't know how to translate that in English, but two ways, you know. The company provides information for the small farmers, and the small farmers have better products to sell them. So, yeah, it's good for both of them.
Mutual
Yeah.
benefiting. But if I may intrude your
Sure.
answer, I just want to help clarify. I think, you know, the best value that they offer to farmers is efficiency. I mean, you know, these irrigation systems, they are highly intensive in energy usage. So if they know how to optimize irrigation, it means they spend less money in energy, for example. And then for the companies as well, it's about the efficiency of supply chains, stability of supply. That's
Yeah, and also like fertilizers. If I know the exact time to apply fertilizers, then I don't have to do it twice. So I will save money from it. It's to optimize. Yeah. That's the main word.
May I ask a question to
Sure.
Thiago? Because I was having that question about, after your presentation, Thiago, so the classic question about the demand side regarding these products that are more sustainable, that usually we think that are more expensive. So then my question was like, okay, is what you are doing is more focused on a kind of a niche or consumer group that will somehow be interested in buying more sustainable? Yes, no, and then if yes, to what extent can we think that this can escalate, or only through the forces of the market, because people somehow will get more like conscious about that, or we still need like some laws that somehow create the market environment in which we are pushed to buy greener products. And then with the presentation, sorry, from Andresa, I understand much better, because there is this other side in which you are also giving more efficiency, which compensates. So then my question is regarding your business model, or what you do in relation to that.
Thanks. That's a very good question. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify that. So we don't work in niche markets. They do. You know, they have traceability, very precise and surgical traceability solutions for companies. We create demand for their work. What we do is try to universalize sustainable production and consumption. So we actually we look at entire supply chains all the products, all producers, all suppliers, everything. So of course, because of this, because of the scale of our work, we don't have the precision. We don't go to the farm level. They do. But then our theory of change, that by exposing these actors involved in these supply chains, and we don't call ourselves a traceability solution. We are a risk mapping tool, I would say, because we map the risks, and then we create the demand because we expose the companies, to these risks, and then they need to hire people like her to do the actual deep traceability so that they can demonstrate to their customers that, okay, I'm not involved in slave labor or deforestation, etc., etc. So our focus is more like we don't want to have a sustainable product on the shelf. We want to remove the unsustainable from the shelves. Yeah. And yeah, it's a civil society organization. We don't sell services. We are funded by philanthropies, foundations, cooperation agencies, etc.
May I? So one question, going back to what you do. I would like to know, so how many, on the one hand, how many other companies are in Brazil that are, let's say, competing with you or offering similar services as you do? And a second question is because all the data that you say you're collecting for the companies, for the farmers, different scales, many of these data points, let's say, are also super interesting to inform public policy decisions. So in terms of B2G data sharing, how would you consider that? Or have you been requested to provide data? I can imagine, but so that's under which conditions, or, could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, sure. It's working? Yeah. So the first question, we have a lot of companies doing almost the same thing that we do, but they are mostly working just with traceability of products. And since we have a lot of how can I say that? Since we started with the Climate Smart Agriculture platform, we know a lot of climate, and this position us in an advantage. Yeah, because we know a lot of weather and climate, and this is crucius. I don't know if this word even exists, but I will try to. If you understand me, that's okay. Thing for agriculture. So then we can track all those things, ESG things for the ESG platform, but we can also improve the indicators. So it's not just tracking, but it's also improving. So it's a big advance that we have compared to the other companies. And the other question was related to the data sharing. Yeah. So a lot of governments and even companies, trading companies, ask us about this climate data, which we are providing for the farmers, which are on farmers' lands. But let's say that. But we are still studying how to provide this information in a legally way, and also how to make a product of it, because we are a startup, so we also need to make a business model of it. So we are still studying. We have a lot of people asking us about this data. It's really something that traders mostly want and need, but we are still checking on how to do it properly, because we have to study a lot.
Yeah, because ultimately it's about yields, right, and failure. So they reduce the failure in the field. So this is quite relevant for farmers, but also for companies if they can anticipate where it's riskier to fund or to provide inputs.
But also for public policy level, for the government, could be crucial in order to go on with better regulations, policy decisions, and so on and so forth.
That's what Ari presented here, the ZARC. It's the zoning,
the Biobank,
the climate risk.
Yeah, but we have a lot of projects also with the government. We have worked a lot with Embrapa also, so Embrapa helped us a lot in the beginning. We are still working together, so well, we are a private company, but we also help the government and government institutions. So we are always trying to work together because we understand it's not just one thing or another. We have to work together to change the whole system. Yeah. Sure.
I will be interested in what kind of farmers you are actually serving. Do you know who your customers are? Are these big landowners, or do you also reach the really small farmers?
Yeah.
Because from a social perspective, we would also like to see that small farmers who have very low levels of education, may even be illiterate, can also make use of your service. And there maybe also there's an issue of information that they actually get to know that this is available. There might be many also institutions, public institutions, that inform farmers on how to do farming, and that should be very much part of the information they should nowadays get from public institutions.
Yeah, this is an awesome question. Thank you. Well, firstly, I would like to say that last week I was in the middle of Minas Gerais, inside farms, there are coffee farms, small farms, talking with farmers, because since we are dealing with them, since we are helping them, since we have this mission, we have to know exactly what are the challenges they are facing. This SAE project that we have with Frutti in the middle of the Amazon, we spent there 2 weeks, and we keep going there eventually, just trying to understand the challenges, to adapt all our platform in order to help them. Obviously, we deal with some kind of challenges related to lack of, I don't know how to say in English, but literacy. So, okay. Yeah, well, we deal with this kind of challenges also, but since we are working with institutions, companies together, we try to make this everything linked and everything together to help them to face all these challenges. But all the projects we are involved, we have this discovery part, where we investigate and understand the challenge, the true challenges the farmers are facing. So to always provide them with better things.
Any other question? No? Okay. So thank you very much. Please, applause to panelists. And with that, we finished today. So the first day of the workshop, it was really intense and interesting. So thank you everyone for coming, and hope to see you, all of you, tomorrow as well. So 9 o'clock.
Thank you so much. If you want to contact me, my email is on the screen. So thank you.